This is going to have absolutely nothing to do with the coronavirus. Promise. This is about West Virginia. We decided to spend a few days in West Virginia. My wife made reservations for us at a state park. Soon after we passed the state line, we stopped at a visitor center. The lady in charge was very friendly, but she was also very frustrated because she was out of maps. I've called and called, she said. I can't get them to send me those maps. We told her where we were going, and she began to laugh. I had the distinct impression that she was amused at our prospects of finding our way, without a map, in rural West Virginia, wild and wonderful. She grabbed a piece of paper and wrote out a route for us. But as she approached the park, she put up her pen and said, "It gets a little murky here. Maybe there will be signs." She looked at us and said, "It's very quiet there. Very nice, but very, very quiet." Virginia is like no other place. It's all steep hills mashed together. Hills that might have been mountains, but they were sanded off. I picture a great flat land as big as Texas, and then some tremendous force crumpled it up, and it did not squish together because it was made of hard rock. The result was all those hills. Those hills have hollers, and the official state legend is the Hatfields and the McCoys, softened on TV into the poor old mountaineer Jed Clampett. Some of the highways run straight, cut through the hills, but eventually the roads get smaller and they begin to follow the lay of the land. There was a song when I was young, and part of the lyrics went around and around and up and down, and that is how you drive in West Virginia. 5 minutes on the road, and everyone in the car is completely disoriented. The GPS is probably not responding. You have no choice but to go around and up and down at about 20 miles an hour. And all of this land is covered with forest, old growth forest. 1% of the original old growth forest is left on the eastern side of America, and I think most of that 1% must be in West Virginia. I'm positive that the pioneers, when they left the Atlantic seaboard and began to press to the west, when they ran into West Virginia, they stopped. They went around and up and down through densely wooded terrain on rocky ground, and they stopped. They had farmed out Vermont and New Hampshire, but here they stopped and waited until Boone located the Cumberland Gap. There is simply no human use for this land. It's wild and wonderful, but it's also inhospitable. In 1970, the state selected a chunk of it and designated that chunk a state park, a resort park, cut in long, narrow, winding roads, put up a lodge and a golf course, tennis courts, a swimming pool, playgrounds, and they blazed out a series of hiking trails. That way, the land could be used. That park was our destination. Along the way, there were some surprises. All the tidy little white Baptist churches with a single tall spire, and the immense, newly built homes along these lonely, winding roads, some of them big enough to rate the tag of mansion. And sometimes, out of nowhere, a car dealership, and then a few miles distance, another car dealership, standing alone, crowded by woods. Where we were, we estimated that we saw 5 pickup trucks for every car. Outside the lodge, there was an impressive monument to the state's coal miners. That was what this difficult land had, hidden deep inside: coal. They had to dig it out, and that was hard and dangerous, but America needed that coal for steel, for railroads, so it could grow. The government looked exactly like the monument looked exactly like a war memorial, and the coal miners were soldiers in a war. They had fought and died for that coal. They died in mining accidents and of black lung, and when they went out on strike for more pay or better conditions, they were beaten or shot. The lady in the visitor center had mentioned a town, WestVgna, and she said something bad had happened there. Something fell, I think. Very bad. That would be what happened on December 6th, 1907, in the morning. An explosion at the Fairmont Coal Company in mine shafts 6 and 8. They guessed that a spark ignited coal dust or methane gas, and it collapsed the mines, destroying all of the ventilation equipment. A rescue began 25 minutes after the blast, but the rescue quickly became a long, slow recovery because there was no oxygen in what remained of the shafts. The official death toll was 362, including 171 Italian immigrants. It remains the largest mining disaster in U.S. history. In our room, where the walls met the ceiling, there were brown spots, spaced out evenly, darker and larger in the corners. Eventually, one of the spots began fluttering, and so we beat a path to the front desk. Ladybugs, the girl there told us, smiling. People leave the doors to the decks open, and they fly in. We can't keep up with them. She continued to smile at us, daring us to object. We went back to the room and the ladybugs. I thought it was strange. My wife decided they might be lucky. The trails were tough, around and around, up and down, but they were wild and wonderful too. We saw no other people, but a lot of deer. The lodge had an elk head by the front desk, the animal shot by a female employee, estimated at 7,500 pounds, an elephant elk. The staff at the lodge had a decided twang in their speech, and they were very friendly. We had a good time, and when we left, the young man at the desk said, "Y'all come back now, you hear?"